ADHD Babes, the podcast, a podcast hosted by the ADHD Babes community for the community. Please note, nothing mentioned during the podcast is meant as a diagnosis. If you believe you have ADHD, please seek professional advice and visit or join ADHDbabes.com for help with diagnosis. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. And now, you're listening to the next episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. Today's episode is hosted by me, Tyler, and today we're going to be discussing self-acceptance. What is self-acceptance, ADHD and self-acceptance, and ways to cultivate more self-acceptance? Joining in on this discussion, we're joined by ADHD Babes, Viv and Lala. Self-acceptance is one of those words thrown about, but sometimes its meaning is confused with other terms like self-esteem, self-care, or self-respect. Self-acceptance is one element of overall self-love. Psychology Today describes the difference between self-acceptance and self-esteem as self-esteem refers specifically to how valuable or worthwhile we see ourselves, whereas self-acceptance alludes to a far more global affirmation of self. When we're self-accepting, we're able to embrace all facets of ourselves. Now we have an understanding of what self-acceptance is. How does it relate to people with ADHD?
Yeah, so I think for me, on a personal level, because I got diagnosed so late, a lot of my kind of self-acceptance has been mixed with understanding the parts of myself that I thought were just kind of personal faults were linked to my ADHD. So the last, like, I don't know, 6, 7 years has been a lot of like picking apart what's my ADHD and what's me and trying to accept both of those two things together without kind of judging it or like beating myself up about it. Yeah, so I think for ADHDers and like other neurodivergent people in general, because we live, especially if you're diagnosed late, because you live so long just kind of navigating the world and not having answers to things, when you finally get the diagnosis or you self-diagnose, you're like, oh, right, like all of those things that I hated about myself, where I thought, oh, those are my quirks. It's like, actually, maybe that's my neurodivergence. But accepting that as part of self, I think is such a huge journey. Yeah, and I think it's very unique to neurodivergent people. Because we've been living with it all our lives. We just didn't have a word for it. So yeah, I think it opens up a whole new journey.
Yeah, no, I agree with that like quite a lot. I feel like I only got diagnosed like a couple of years ago. So I kind of knew, but I didn't have anything like on paper that was like, you've got ADHD. So it was kind of like a lot of time I'd do things and then just apologize for it as soon like once I'd been diagnosed. I'd be like, sorry, it's my ADHD. Especially if I like met someone new, I'd be like talking loads and I'd be like, sorry, that's my ADHD. And then it's like, well, actually, before then, I just talk a lot, and then people would be like, "Oh, I talk a lot," but I wouldn't apologize for it. But now there's a specific like label attached to it, I guess, and kind of like use that as a caveat almost sometimes. And then when actually I can just be like, I talk a lot. I've also got ADHD. It's weird because it's kind of like, how do you separate the person from the neurodivergent kind of aspects of themselves without saying this is my personality or this is because my brain works in a certain way. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out myself. But yeah, there was a lot of time when I'd just be like, sorry, it's my ADHD, sorry, ADHD. But yeah, now it's kind of got ADHD, but I'm just going with it. So you just take it as it is kind of thing. But again, still on the journey, so who knows where I'll be in the next like 2 years. But yeah, it is interesting. Lala, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I also got my diagnosis really recently, about a year ago. And I think for me, self-acceptance, it's an interesting one because kind of like on a small scale, because I know what the reality of being me is and my day-to-day is, I do have a level of self-acceptance in that I'll be like, well, I know that, this is how my brain works. This is what I deal with. And so I just need to not try to force anything or like shame myself for being the way that I am. And I need to kind of like work with how I am. But then I'm still definitely on a journey when it comes to kind of like the larger scale of my life, like looking at where I wish I was and kind of how I feel my ADHD, but also maybe my past and my childhood contributed to me not having achieved certain things by certain like milestones or benchmarks. So that is definitely something that I'm still working on accepting and not feeling so much like pressure and shame and guilt around, because I definitely do find myself being like, okay, well, I know this is how I am, but it's still frustrating that that has made things so difficult to the point where I haven't been able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve within a certain time frame. So yeah, it's definitely still a journey for me.
I definitely relate to that because there is a lot of like shame and guilt, especially if you're trying to achieve something and then you don't hit those goals, or could happen at any point in life, really. You could be like, okay, I'm about to do education, or I want to get a new job, or literally I want to move house. And you're like, okay, I've got to set a deadline in order for me to meet these things. And then when you're unable to do that because of the way like ADHD brains or neurodivergent brains are set up, it's kind of disheartening in a way, but also at the same time, it's allowing yourself to not be too hard on yourself and not meeting those deadlines, and giving yourself the flexibility to work with that in order to move forward. Otherwise, you're every time you get to a point where you've not met a deadline or you've not hit a benchmark or a goal, you're just going to fall at that hurdle if you keep being hard on yourself, which is not actually that helpful. But you only really get to that point when you've like accepted, like, actually, I'm probably not going to meet the goal the first time, and that's okay. But I think especially if you compare yourself to like neurotypical people who may be around you, especially if you've gone through school and stuff not knowing that you've got ADHD, it's really difficult to not compare yourself to neurotypical people who may just be fine with it.
100%. I was gonna say as well, like when you was talking, it reminded me of the psychotherapist that does our self-esteem workshops for the babes. And she, yeah, like we talk about self-esteem, and a lot of the stuff that comes up is that thing of, yeah, because we've struggled for so long and not known why, it's that like self-blame and just not feeling you're good enough type of thing. And then when we're trying to talk about, okay, how can we move forward into self-acceptance? And the thing she always says is to focus on persistence over consistency. So it's like, okay, cool, yeah, maybe I'm not gonna finish this thing on the first round, or I might like start something and be super, super passionate about it, and then, in a month's time, I'm on to the next thing. But that's okay. And that for me has been a huge part of my self-acceptance. Like, it's a very silly example, but like I get really addicted to Sims, and I will like play all the plugins. I will get super gas. I will literally be playing till 4 a.m. in the morning like a vampire. And then suddenly, I don't want to play anymore. And before it used to piss me off. So I'm like, I'm wasting so much time.
There's so much money. Like, why am I spending like £40 on these games to play for 3 days?
Right.
Not taking
3
any
long
breaks.
days.
And I'm just sat there like, yeah, this is great. And then I'm like, not great anymore. See you in another year. See you when the next expansion pack comes out.
Exactly. And it really used to grind my gears. Like, why can't I like something for long enough? But now I'm like, you know what? It served its purpose for that time period, and
Yeah.
fine, it might have been a month, it might have been 6 months, and then it catches dust, but it served me at that time. And like
Yeah.
really accepting that something doesn't need to be valuable, like for something to be valuable doesn't mean it needs to last forever. It can literally serve its purpose for that time, and I'm not a bad person, or I'm not unserious just because I pick things up and I can drop them. Like, and if it's something that I really want to stick to, then it's that thing of, okay, I can put it down and I can always come back to it, and that's where the persistency comes in. And I've tried to really like say that to myself when I start stuff and don't finish it, or if like just typical symptoms like being late or misplacing things crop up, just I can always come back and try again. And that has been a huge self-acceptance key for me.
Yeah. Because I was just thinking then it's like, how do we value things and how do we place value on tasks and not finishing things, for example? And how much does that value affect how we see ourselves? Is also really interesting. It is ironic, but the lack of self-acceptance is taught to us by the people around us who may not accept us as we are. If we internalize the negative feedback we get, it can prevent us from accepting ourselves. Is this something that either of you have found to be true in your personal lives, or any examples that you may have seen in other people's lives?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, I know that I'm a people pleaser, like to the core. So being also very attuned to people's perceptions of me and like what people kind of need from me, I'm hyper aware of when I'm not meeting that. And it can really kind of unground me from my like self and from where I need to kind of be channeling my energy and my focus. And I think it's something that pretty much everybody, like as you grow up and mature as a human being, you start to realize like I can spend my life trying to satisfy everyone else, or I can really focus on how to be my best self and what that means and how that's specific to me. And I think that definitely since getting my diagnosis and just having more of an understanding of like, okay, there's there's some reasoning behind these behaviors and maybe like this, what appears to other people to be chaos. I've been a lot more, I mean, obviously acceptance is the theme of the episode, but I've been a lot more accepting of myself and a lot less willing to sort of like throw myself under the bus to take on what someone else expects of me, and to kind of wear whatever someone else says, okay, this is what you should wear, and this is how you should act, and this is how I need you to be, kind of thing. So I think having more of an understanding of myself is definitely key to self-acceptance, whether that's been with my ADHD or just going to therapy, reading books, whatever, just having more of an understanding of my mental landscape and my past, and all of that has been so crucial in self-acceptance and in kind of being more compassionate to myself. And that helps me massively in feeling more grounded and more like confident in, okay, this is who I am. And I can take things in and hear feedback from people, but it doesn't mean that I need to necessarily like throw off my entire personality and take something else on just to satisfy someone. I can hear it and I can analyze it. And if it feels like a fit, I can take it on and kind of like learn and grow. But it's not I need to trust that I have somewhat of an idea of who I am, like what's best for me at some point, because if I never get there, like I'll just kind of be flailing around forever. So that's another thing that since getting this diagnosis, I've realized like maybe it's not just been the ADHD, maybe it's also been the fact that because I didn't understand what was going on with me, I had so little trust in myself. And I was very quick to kind of like shed myself and take on something else to please someone or to kind of like fit into some box. And that obviously wasn't leading to anything productive that enabled me to really like build the blocks that I wanted to have the life that I wanted. So yeah, self-acceptance, I'm realizing more and more is like so crucial to getting to where I want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's kind of just made me think about this whole like thing of masking and how, especially, it's pretty related to this idea of self-acceptance and other people's like negative feedback of us, because then it might be, oh, you spoke too much at that social event, so then the next time you go to a social event, you're suddenly like, okay, so this is what neurotypicals do. They don't speak that much, and they hyper focus on other people listening, and they contribute only when they've been asked to contribute, and then suddenly you've got all of these different layers that actually just dim your shine and who you actually are. And whereas if you're take that mask off and you're just accepting that, well, this is me, people should either accept you or not, and it's fine if they don't accept you. And it's kind of being able to move past that and think, well, you know, not everyone's going to like you, and if they don't like you for who you are, then that's their loss. It's not anything to be upset about in that way, because you can't change who you are. And I think a lot of people with ADHD that do mask try to fit into certain boxes, as you just said, and it's actually really difficult and takes a lot of energy trying to do that continuously, like throughout someone's life. Like, you can't keep the mask up forever. So I think it is, as you say, like such a crucial thing to just accept who you are and what you're about, and the certain aspects of yourself that may be ADHD or may just be your personality. Yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Lala, like that. And I feel like that trust in ourselves, I feel like everyone is born with it. Like, you're not born into the world not trusting yourself. I think what happens is, like, that says we grow up and we're constantly told that what we're doing is incorrect, or that we're not doing it the right way, or we're not doing it enough, or we're not doing it fast enough, or do you know what I mean? Like, as we go through life as children, we are constantly informed that the way we are isn't okay. And I know for me anyway, that definitely manifested into perfectionist traits of like, okay, cool, I keep getting reprimanded, I keep making mistakes, I keep doing this. So to avoid constantly disappointing people and constantly feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm working 10 times as hard to like mask the fact that I could ever make a mistake.
Yeah.
And then I think, yeah, the problem in doing that is now my whole like way of navigating is always to avoid things going wrong, or to avoid people looking at me funny, or um, being othered. And that just becomes the norm. Like, I was doing that for ages. And it's actually only recently, like, thank God for therapy, that I've been able to look at like you were saying, those social interactions, like, oh, am I talking too much? Or oh my God, I just interrupted somebody again, and it's really loud in here. So like now I'm stimming because I'm overwhelmed, and like overthinking constantly of how I'm gonna be received in a group setting. And then yeah, just that making it unenjoyable because you're thinking of all the worst case scenarios. Yeah, so I think that, going back to self, like Lala was saying, like, okay, what are my base needs? What do I actually want and need in this situation? And being able to separate from that fear of as I am is not enough type of things. I think that's the message that we get told. Um, and I think, yeah, being able to find spaces and people that accept us the way we are has been like a huge game changer for me. Like, luckily enough, I just naturally gravitated towards lots of people who are also neurodivergent. So I didn't have to like force myself to be very different around like my close circle of friends. So I think that really helps to then be able to go out to the rest of the world and be like, okay, what do I know I need? And okay, maybe this space isn't safe enough for me to do that, but it means I'm not going to go there very often. Or it means that, the minute I'm on break, I'm out of here. Like, it's just finding those spots. But even if, I think the first step is that honesty yourself, because we sometimes we are stuck in places where we can't show up with our whole self because it's not safe. But if we acknowledge that that's what's happening, then we don't at least blame ourselves. So yeah, I think that first step of knowing, like, okay, what do I actually need? And then the next step of like, okay, how do I do it? And it's okay if I don't fit into every space, because that doesn't mean I'm wrong. It doesn't mean everything about me is right, but not everything about me is also wrong. So it's trying to decide and figure that out. And that takes time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's is difficult though, because I think as well there needs to be a certain level of like self-awareness to understand when you're in these spaces and not feeling comfortable, or realizing that actually I'm in this social, not, I was going to say experiment, social like event or whatever, but I have noticed that maybe I'm masking, or I'm trying to like focus on things that aren't necessarily the conversation. It's more about what I'm doing and how I'm behaving, and being able to notice when you're just doing that, and then say, actually, I need to stop doing that, and take yourself out of your own head and put yourself back into the situation or the moment that's happening. Because there's so many times when I'll be in like a social situation or something, and then I'll just be like, actually, I'm not even in the conversation now. I'm not listening to anything that's being said. I'm actually focusing on me being perceived that I'm listening. And that kind of defeats the point of being in the social situation, because if you're not even listening, someone's going to ask you a question, you're going to be buffering for ages, and then it's going to be obvious that you're not listening, and then you suddenly snap back into the conversation, you're like, I can't even keep up because I've missed 10 minutes of it. And then you just end up in this like cycle where then you're kind of like, oh, why do I do this every single time? And then suddenly it's like the self-love aspect comes into it, because you're beating yourself up, and then you kind of have to be self-aware that you're doing all of this while still in the social situation, which is absolute nonsense. But if you just accepted, sometimes I'm going to jump in and out of the conversation, and that's fine. If I'm in a safe space where I can tell someone honestly before we even get into the conversation, I'm probably going to jump in and out of this conversation, and that's just how I am, because maybe my attention span is a bit short. And knowing that I can say that, and it's a safe space to do that, it's no longer like a pressurized situation. It's something that you can just enjoy. And maybe you're in the conversation for 10 minutes, maybe you're looking at the ceiling for 10 minutes, like it's fine. No one's going to try and pick your brain about what's being said. You can dip in and out of conversations, but it's kind of being self-aware enough that you can spot these moments, and then when you go to the next social event, you can say to someone, oh, by the way, just as a heads up. But you can't really do that if you're not self-aware in that, what's the word, you can't really pick up on those moments if you're not self-aware, because you're too busy masking, basically. And I think masking is a big thing that a lot of people do, which can actually be quite detrimental. But then I don't know. Someone jump in.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. My skin is long. Like the hell.
Like,
When I realized, why should I be tired after a social? I shouldn't be that tired. Yes, fine,
yeah,
you can be introverted, but it's not introversion that's doing me. It's my skin.
like you're working so much harder than everyone else just to stay in the conversation.
Can
I'm at work.
you, just delving on something that Tyler said, that clearly everybody is like not as hooked on as I am, but you mentioned that you go and you will say to someone, or you will be like, if you feel better in yourself in the fact that you need to tell someone, oh, you know, I'm like this. But isn't that also like, is that helping, or is that really like do we should we need to have to go and explain that we have ADHD in order to feel comfortable in that social situation? So that's why I want to start.
Yeah, I think it's a thing that I have been told by other friends. They're like, you're quite apologetic. I mean, yeah, I guess it is apologetic in a way, but also at the same time, I think especially when I'm meeting new people, like I don't want to come across like rude or ignorant, or like they may think I'm better than them because I'm not engaged in the conversation. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I think from experiences, especially when I was like in education and stuff, I might be in a conversation or something and then I zone out, or could be in work and then I zone out. And it's kind of like, well, oh, you're not listening. And it's kind of like, well, I am listening, but I actually don't have the attention span to stay in a space where I can keep listening intently whilst we're talking about a topic that I may not be fully interested in. So then it's kind of like letting them know, but also at the same time, is that actually going to change their opinion? Probably not. They probably don't even understand what the whole thing is. So it's kind of like it only really works if the person has taken the time out to kind of engage with what ADHD actually is as a learning difficulty or disability. I'm not sure, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know. I guess in a way, it does help some people, but not necessarily for everyone. Because it got to the point now where sometimes in work I just don't tell people. I'm just kind of like, I just let them think whatever they're going to think, because realistically, it's not going to change their opinion. They already think that. So if I'm not listening, I'm not listening, and they're just going to have to repeat themselves because I'm going to ask them to repeat themselves. But it's just me. I think, well, actually, I do think once someone that I hadn't known for that long brought it up to me, I was kind of just like, oh, I guess I do that a lot. And also, maybe I don't have to anymore. And then from that point, I kind of was just a bit like, it is what it is. People are going to think what they're going to think. I can't change that. So there's no point in me trying to force a change in that by telling them straight away. But I have in the past very much led with, I've got ADHD, so blah, blah, blah. But then I guess, is that using it as an excuse? I don't know. Some people do think I'm using that as an excuse. Oops, sorry. Yeah, some people do think I'm using that as an excuse, but I'm not. I'm just letting them know. I feel like it's a courtesy thing, but why do I need to be courteous about something that I'm dealing with? They can also deal with it.
I think for me, I haven't really brought it up a lot to people. The only times I would is the only times I have is like in like romantic relationships. I might just say, just as a as a note, I cut you off because of this reason. My brain is working in overdrive and I feel like I have a response, or I've processed what you're saying like 30 seconds before you've even said it. And so my mouth is gonna open. I'm gonna start speaking. I don't know that it helps make it feel less annoying for the person, but I think putting it out there just as like I don't value what you say or your right to express yourself any less than mine. It's just that sometimes I genuinely cannot help it, and it just jumps out at me. Even in conversation with people, I sometimes like will fill in the blanks or like finish their sentences, and it's not even what they were gonna say, but because I don't know, it's just now like something that I'm so used to doing. And a lot of the time I am on the right track and I'm kind of like listening at super speed, and I kind of just will jump in and complete sentences. And I haven't had loads of people, to my face at least, kind of call me out for it. It's become something that that I do kind of without even noticing. But yeah, that self-awareness is definitely important I think, just not so much to mask and to be hyper aware of how people perceive me, but more so to just also understand how I occupy space, because obviously everyone, whether they have ADHD or not, can have anxiety in social settings or can have a certain level of discomfort. So if I'm somebody who's always like finishing people's sentences or talking a lot more than everyone else, I also feel like I have to be aware of that and how that might impact other people. And I guess putting it out there, if it's someone that I'm close to or someone that I'm like building a relationship with, it could help them to feel like, oh, okay, this person isn't just like an ass who's like sucking all the oxygen out of the room. There's a reason behind it, and it's more so because they're really interested in this conversation, or there's like a more passion here. So that's why she's doing this, rather than like, oh, she just kind of wants to cut me off and not hear what I have to say. And so she's like taking up all the space and talking over me. So it's something that I definitely have had to be honest with myself about, that this is something that I do for sure. But with people who I'm close to, I guess I could get better at explaining why that is, because I don't necessarily know that it's gonna stop. I could try my best, but it just comes so naturally that yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, it's like
Yeah.
this idea of when someone does address it with you, not getting defensive about it and be like, oh, it's my ADHD. But also at the same time, just being able to discuss that without feeling like you're having some kind of negative feedback. Because I mean, there's a lot of people who get like RSD, which is rejection sensitive. Oh my God, what's the D?
Dysphoria.
Yeah, that, which can actually then really, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? It could make a lot of these conversations a lot worse, because the way you're taking someone's negative feedback, or feedback you perceive to be negative, and then you're adding the emotion of RSD into it, is then really heightening like all of the emotions. And suddenly you're having a conversation and it's an argument, and then suddenly it's like, I'm not going to speak to you for the rest of the day now because you've pissed me off and I can't cope with it. And then you're actually just sat there thinking and stewing about this moment where we could have had a conversation and we could have explained what the issue was, but because I've perceived you perceiving me negatively, and I've not accepted who I am, or not accepted the aspects of my ADHD, I'm now spending the rest of the day fuming. And that's a waste of the day, really, because we could have had a productive conversation. So I think a lot of it is about being able to like understand how you occupy space, as you said, and thinking about how it may impact other people, and being able to like explain that in a way that isn't necessarily apologetic, which is something I'm still learning.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think I've definitely got better at the interrupting people thing. But I literally write down what I'm gonna say, or like the thought that's popped into my mind. So then even that in itself looks like I'm ignoring someone because now I'm looking at my phone. But you really have to choose your poison.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that thing about intention is super important. And I think that for me is the most important thing when communicating, because I don't think we necessarily have to, apologize for our existence. Like it's like, oh, sorry that I'm me. It's like, no, we're allowed to exist as well. And I think every relationship is very much a dance. Like I can show up as I am, the other person can show up as they are. And there's going to be some things that are non-negotiable. Like I'm sure there's some people that are just completely intolerant to being interrupted. So they're probably not going to have an ADHD mate that interrupts, and that's cool. Like we can just live in different parts of this planet. It's a big planet, like there's lots of space. Whereas for some people they can compromise a bit more, or like the ADHD can try and figure out, okay, how can I adapt? Like everything is nothing is set in stone, and it really is down to like, is this relationship worth compromising on either side or both sides? And for me, I do speak about my ADHD sometimes. Often it's kind of sad because often it only comes up in explanation when I've done something wrong, rather than like, oh, I was able to hyper focus on this thing and it was really creative because of my ADHD brain. But that's something I need to work on, like naming the good parts. But yeah, in scenarios where I feel like it explains my intention more than anything. So it's not me trying to make an excuse or me trying to absolve myself from responsibility, because I don't stop being responsible for something just because it happened because of my ADHD. Like it is still my responsibility, and I'm just trying to like give insight into what the situation is, because I don't want someone to misinterpret it as, oh, okay, Viv was late because she doesn't give a heck. It's like, no, I do give a heck. I actually woke up an hour before and I planned my outfit the day before and I actually set 3 alarms. So I care very, very much. But the ADHD was kicking my ass. So it's very much like I'm just trying to explain my intention. I'm not explaining away my problem. And I will still apologize for the impact of that thing, and offer my explanation in there. So I think there's definitely a distinction between the two. And sometimes people misinterpret, like when we're saying it's because of ADHD, they think we're trying to excuse it away. And I don't think that's what people are doing. I think we're actually just trying, and that's part of the self-acceptance. Again, this is the way I am sometimes. Sometimes I'm late, sometimes I forget things, and I can do lots of things behind the scenes to mitigate that. And sometimes that still doesn't work. And that's where nobody's perfect. Even neurotypical people can be late. So that's just human beings, like, and that we can't always hold ourselves to perfect standards. We always aim to be obviously the best versions of ourselves. If you like, be mediocre, that's also okay. But yeah, I think it's okay to just accept where we're at, and people that are willing to like see us as whole people with the parts that might not be as nice and the nice parts, they will embrace that. And the people that won't, that's also fine. Like, there's other mates out there. So yeah.
Another factor regarding self-acceptance and ADHD is comparison. If we compare other people's skills, whether that be their ability with time, executive function, or attentiveness, it can be easy to reject our own qualities. If we view ourselves through the lens of maximum productivity at all times, it can be challenging to accept ourselves as we are. Can you think of any other reasons why it might be difficult for people with ADHD to accept themselves?
Definitely agree with the comparison part. Yeah, even just simple things like I remember in college, it sounds so ridiculous, um, asking someone like, "Hey, how do you revise?" To this day, that memory is etched in my mind. I was being so genuine. Like, I'll never forget him, Jesse. I wish you well. Lovely, lovely man. I was like, Jesse, how do you revise? And he was like, I just go to the library. I was like, yeah, I know, but like when you sit down, like how do you concentrate? And he was just like, I just start reading. And I thought he was joking. Like, I thought he was keeping a secret from me. Oh my God.
Stop being
And I just
friends with
remember,
Jesse. I can't believe you hiding on this. I can't speak to you again.
Jesse, I'm not your mate anymore.
Notes.
Right. Why aren't you sharing? I'll share my curly fries with you. Just tell me how to revise.
Jesse did not
Oh
want you
my
to
days.
shine.
What'd you say?
Jesse did not want you to shine.
Right. He didn't want me to shine. But little did I know that he was telling the truth. Like, that's actually how he concentrates. He sits down and he's able to read his book. And that always used to rattle me. Like, how are people able to just go to the library and sit down and do their work? Or like, how do people know that the next lecture is at 10 a.m.? Did you know that? Like, little things like that. I just used to think maybe uni is not for me. Like, maybe I'm not an academic babe. Maybe I need to do something with my hands. Maybe I can be a magician. Like that comparison. Oh my God. That comparison was kicking my ass. So that is definitely a big one. And I think on top of that, because the world is set up in a way that bolsters neurotypical behavior, I think we are always going to be on the back foot until the world is more set up to be inclusive. So the fact is, when you get into independent education, they're like, here, log onto your portal, your timetable's there. What portal? I don't know what they talk about. But the way they set it up is that you just have to know. You need to be on it. You need to be organized. You need to be able to have time management skills. You need to have decent processing time. Like all of these things that are set up as a standard are not our standard. So I think living in the world in that way kind of you process it as I processed it as I just need to work twice as hard. Or I'll flip to the other side and be like, oh, this just isn't for me. Let me go and find something else. Whereas actually there's definitely a middle ground of the world needs to accommodate us more, and actually we need to be given the tools to be able to like, yeah, carry ourselves through through the world. Yeah, so I think the way the system is set up makes it very, very, very hard. Very, very hard.
Yeah, I remember oh my God, what was that app called in lockdown? Was it House Party? Not House Party. Clubhouse. Sorry, I can't believe I even got it wrong. Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse.
No,
And
wait. How they're both legitimate apps, so
oh right, okay. I thought I was making one up.
it really depends on what you're talking about, but they're both apps.
Okay, that's fine then. I meant Clubhouse. Because I used to be in these like rooms where it'd be like ADHD, and I'd be like, "Oh, sweet, found my people. Like, here's my tribe. Hey, hey." And someone was saying how the world, and I've never forgot it, and I must have been on Clubhouse for like maybe 5 days nonstop, constantly on there, and then I was like, "I'm gonna do something else now." But the one thing I took from that was someone said a quote that ADHD people are hunters in a farmer's world. And I was literally just like, you know what, that has changed my life. And I was just like, yeah, we are. Like, we should be out there gathering whatever we need to gather and bringing it back to the people. And instead, we're on the fields. Why? Why are we doing things that aren't actually set up for us? And then we wonder why we failed because the task isn't set up for us. So I think once I kind of looked at it in that perspective, I was kind of just like, it's all right, I can try it, but I'm not going to be upset or shocked that I may not succeed in a specific task, or I may not flourish in the same way that other people are flourishing. And I think once you accept that, and a lot of the time, I think because of the way the world is set up, it's not necessarily waiting for someone else to make those adjustments. You kind of have to make the adjustments yourself. Because like I do architecture and I'm doing my final like degree for it. And everyone at work that has done the same like part 3 education, they've all gone to the exact same like institution whereby you have to sit a big 3-day exam, and this is the culmination of like 7 or 8 years of like university and learning and all of this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I can't sit in that room. I'm not going to sit in the room because I'm not going to concentrate for 3 days straight. Like, I just know I'm not. So there's no point in me attempting to go to this institution and sign up, knowing that the entire time I'm just going to be thinking, I can't do this 3-day exam. So I just went and had a look and perused the different institutions, and I might be the only one from my office doing it in this certain institution, but it's modular, and I've already done half of the course, and then I decided to take 2 years out. And that is way better for the way that I work and how I process information rather than trying to do a big 3-day exam. And I could have done the big 3-day exam. I may have passed, I may have failed, but why am I going to do something that I already know going into it isn't set up for how I work? And it's kind of thinking like, are you actually going to put yourself in situations where you know this probably isn't best suited to how I work or how I am? Or are you just going to try and find something else that is actually a bit better suited to who you are? That's just my take on it. Lala, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think something that I'm still dealing with that is just the frustration of how much extra labor and sort of like parallel life planning we kind of have to do to exist in these spaces that are built by neurotypical people, and to just kind of like get things done and make life. It's something that I'm like, okay, it's already so exhausting having to like fit into that box, and then now alongside that I have to like set up all of these little hacks for me to get through it, and I also have to do a modular program when other people can just go and sit and do something for 3 days. It's like it just that frustration is something that I'm still definitely like working through, because I I can't not compare. I feel like it's so like that difference is so jarringly apparent to me at all times, like in work, in education, in just like even meeting up with friends and being able to make a deadline and kind of knowing like as I'm agreeing to the time that I will most likely not make that time, and always having this thing of like, okay, am I just going to have less sleep and get up 2 hours before so that I can do everything I need to do and get there at that time? Or am I going to like give myself the like time to relax and like sleep in like I know my friends are probably doing, and they'll be able to still make it at that time, you know? I definitely have this thing where I'm just like always battling between that perfectionism and not letting my ADHD like quote unquote set me back, or like not be able to meet these like neurotypical life expectations, versus being like, okay, this is me, this is like how I am, how I work, and I'm not going to like additionally punish myself for not having been born, you know, in that kind of group and being born in this group, you know? So that's definitely something that like that comparison for me is like constant, but I'm still trying to work out how much to, I guess, like mold my behaviors and just my whole world and network around being like, okay, this is who I am. Let's just accept that, versus fighting and doing the very extra tiring labor to not appear to be any different from the norm. I still don't know, kind of, I haven't figured out that balance.
So I was also thinking from what you said, um, about like making adjustments and stuff. Um, if you're gonna make adjustments, would that not technically appease the perfectionism side of things if it means that you can achieve the goals that you're trying to set yourself, if that makes sense?
It definitely will help me personally, but it's more so about how that impacts kind of on a external level, and how, so even with things like my education, right? Like I've made certain decisions in education that have not made sense to family, or that have not been um, you know, similar to things that friends have done. And I know that a lot of people have been like, why would you do that? Like that doesn't make any sense. But for me, I knew like, okay, it's either I do this or like I'm basically like nailing my mental health to, like just down, and just saying like happiness and well-being be damned. I will just continue down this route that might make sense for 99.9% of people, but for me does not make sense at all. And I've definitely like, you feel, I guess you feel a sense of like, okay, I did this thing for me, and I'm proud of myself for having made that decision that I know for a fact was better for me. But I still definitely feel the pressure to not conform, but to kind of satisfy a very external um like standard of where I should be, how I should be, what I should be doing. And it's just that tension that I'm not comfortable with. Like I will still do what's best for me, but that tension is always there, and it just feels sometimes like, would life just be easier if I put in just like loads of extra effort to just, you know, kind of quote unquote fall in line and do what's like the norm? I feel like I'm always going against the grain, and sometimes it's a little bit exhausting being the rebel. You know, it's just, it would be so much more um just not, it would be so much less taxing on me if I guess if I had more people around me sort of like marching to the beat of their own drum, but that drum is like not the same drum as like the neurotypical system drum, you know? I feel like, yeah, it's hard being like the lone person out there, like forging your own path when, and then having to like explain yourself, or having to just like exist in a space where you know that people have questions about what you're doing and the choices you're making.
Yeah, no, I feel that 100%. It's kind of like, because I think when I was in university, it wasn't until I started doing my dissertation that I was kind of like, there's obviously something here that is not working, because I'll do the same things as everybody else on my course. We'll all go to the library, we'll all put in the same hours. And I'm thinking, why is it that everybody else has started and I've not started yet? Or how come everybody else is writing and I'm not writing? Or how come everybody else has got 7,000 words and I've not even got the first paragraph yet? And it's kind of this thing where I wonder if, because you said you kind of set your own standards and you follow that, and it may be different to what everybody else is doing. But I wonder if you were to follow the same beat as everyone else that was neurotypical, whether you'd feel any better by that. Like, I feel like when I was doing that, I still felt the exact same pressure, but it was a different sort of pressure where it was like, how come I'm doing the exact same thing and I'm not getting the same results? And then you're coming at it from a different way where you're still frustrated and you're still annoyed and kind of down on yourself because you're not gaining those same results, even though you're putting in just as much time. You're probably putting in more time than everybody else because you're like, well, I didn't write 6,000 words today, so now I need to stay up all night until I write at least 1,000. Whereas if I'd done what I was doing now and just went, sang my own song, danced to my own like music or whatever, rather than trying to be like everybody else and how they were all doing it, I would have enjoyed the work a lot more. I probably would have got better results from all of those different like assessments because I'd have more of an understanding of what I needed to do in order to get those results rather than looking at other people and comparing myself. But it is really interesting how you can be on either side and still feel the same kind of pressure. I guess it's kind of like a grass is greener situation in a way. Oh, if I just did this, life would be so much better. But actually, you could be on the other side of it and be thinking, oh, well, if I just did that. So yeah, it's tricky. But there is a lot of like, I think a lot of it is obviously comparison. And it's difficult not to compare yourself when you're in a world that is built for other sorts of brains. And especially when you're diagnosed later on in life, you spend all of that time before you get diagnosed thinking this is how it is, when actually there's so many options that you can have once you realize like, oh, I've got ADHD, maybe I can make these adjustments, maybe I can find other people who also have ADHD or any kind of neurodivergent, lost my mic, neurodivergent brains, and then you're kind of like in it together almost, and I guess that kind of takes away some of the pressure. But it's being able to find those people, which is a big thing, which is why obviously groups like ADHD Babes is really good, because it means that people can come together and know that you're not actually alone. You don't need to compare yourself to other people who fundamentally aren't going to be like you, because that's not how your brain is set up. Like, it's just not. And once you accept that's not how your brain is set up, you can kind of start to move forward. And it is a long journey, as we've said. But I guess it's part of the ride, right? You've just got to go with ups and downs and just make it work for you. I think it's what I'm saying. I don't know. Who knows what I'm saying? Here we are. Should we move on? So yeah, self-acceptance can be challenging for people with ADHD, but it's not impossible to practice and cultivate. Do either of you have any tips to help ADHDers with self-acceptance?
Yeah, I've got a few tips. I think one tip is if you're Black women or Black non-binary babes, join ADHD babes. I think that's cheeky little plug there. Yeah, I think there is something really, I don't know, there's something really reaffirming about someone else telling their story and it sounds like they're reading from your diary or like you say you express like a personal experience that you're like, oh, I'm not sure if people are going to understand, and you look up and they're just there people nodding their head. Like there's something about community that for me has been life changing because there were so many parts of myself that I I would beat myself up for, or like it would just make me feel insecure. And I think would make me quite avoidant. Like I wouldn't want to, and even now, like I'm still working on this thing of like being seen, being uncomfortable being seen because I don't want to be judged or I don't want to be misunderstood. But I think when you go to spaces where your difference isn't a difference, is actually something that binds you together. It just reminds you that you're not alone and that your existence is not something that you need to apologize for. Like you're allowed to be here as you are. So yeah, even if it's not ADHD babes, I just encourage people to find spaces where your neurodivergence is not an othering tool. It's actually something that is celebrated. Um, I always encourage going to therapy and getting a good therapist because it's not every therapist that you should go to. I think therapy is such an amazing space to like self-reflect and to like look back and see where like our old kind of default ways of thinking are impacting us in the present day because we just don't think about it, we're just living it. So I think therapy is such a good space. And I think anything that helps with self-reflection for me is journaling. But for somebody else it might be like they take long walks. I know there's a babe that like they'll record themselves talking aloud and then listen back to the memo, and that helps them like process what's going on in their head. So I think anything that brings you back to your core self, like away from the noise, away from like other people's opinions and their negative interpretations of you, like stripping it all away back to like your center. So that thing Lala was saying earlier, like getting back to that trust of self. Um, and then I would also just like trying it out in little places, like times where you would work twice as hard to like not be seen as different, or you're not sure you want to present or stim or like show a side of your ADHD. Like I would always encourage people to test it in small doses. Not everyone is going to be encouraging and like hold space. But I think we learn like a muscle when we start trying to show up with our full selves in different places. And when we get positive feedback, it's just a reminder that okay, this space is safe or this person is safe. And if someone isn't, then it's like, okay, maybe I'm not going to try that with this person next time, or maybe I'm going to ask them about it and see, why they reacted in that way. Um, yeah, but I think just slowly ease yourself into a true version of yourself. And that obviously takes time. So also be super compassionate to yourself. Yeah. And however long the journey takes, that's also okay. Even if you don't want to do the journey, that too is fine. Just do you. And that's self-acceptance in itself.
Stories. Lala, you want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say similarly, therapy I think has been major for me, um, because you sometimes like I don't know, I'm such a thinker, like overthinker, and I am in this little bubble of my brain, and I'm like sometimes I can really like fixate on certain things, certain behaviors or traits, or and start judging myself for them. But therapy helped a lot with developing self-compassion and just being kinder to myself and less critical. And that obviously is a huge component in self-acceptance. It also helps a lot with self-awareness. I think having an understanding of why you do certain things, whether it's connected to your ADHD or whether it's just connected to the way you were nurtured. I think that's so key in in kind of like separating yourself from that like temporary emotion, or even from an action or something you might have said to someone, being able to acknowledge them and be like, okay, that is something that I've been through, that's something that I said or did, or those are behaviors or traits that I have, but I'm not going to, beat myself up for them. I'm just going to be I'm going to be aware, and I'm going to reflect and think about kind of how they help or hinder me from getting to the place that I want to get to as a human, as a friend, as a partner in my career, whatever that is. So I think, yeah, therapy is just so key, and definitely it's about the therapist as much as it is about the act of going to therapy. And also similarly, community. I think something that's been actually quite interesting. When Vivian said avoidant, I was like, yes, that's been my kind of like coping strategy, just sort of like closing in and keeping as much to myself as possible. Because there was just this fear of like how I would be perceived or judged if certain things, came to light. And I think in recent years, I've really like worked on breaking down those walls. And something that's been interesting is talking to close friends, talking to partners, and being like, how does my ADHD affect or like manifest to you? How has it like maybe affected our relationship in your opinion? Like, what are certain things that you see me doing that you're like, oh yeah, that might be the ADHD? Because obviously you live in your body and you do your day, but sometimes it doesn't, I don't know, it's nice to feel seen, but it's also very affirming for me to have people say like, oh, this is not something that I judge you over. It's just something I've noticed about you. I know that you're probably going to be late. I don't think that it makes you a bad person or a bad friend. It's just something that I've noticed about you. And then I can take that on and be like, oh, okay, so this is something that people notice, but it's not something that I have to be ashamed for and like beat myself up over. But now that I have a little bit less anxiety over it, maybe I can actually work on.
We can practice self-acceptance by reducing the time spent doing self-assessment, striving towards perfectionism, and constantly trying to self-improve. We can affirm the person we are today. And I think that is really important, and also connects in with what you both were saying, because it's important to think about, as Lala said, like how ADHD can bring you positivity. It's not just this big negative thing that's holding you back. Like, it does have so many great aspects to it. And everyone who has ADHD has their own little special superpower. And they may not all be the exact same, but whatever it is has helped you get to where you are today. If that's actually, you can hyper focus on the things that you enjoy and you actually have a really great outcome, or maybe you're really creative, or maybe it means that you're not afraid of speaking to people because you just love talking. It could literally be anything. And I think sometimes we as neurotypicals kind of forget that it is a positive thing at the end of the day. So yeah, I think part of the self-acceptance is accepting that what we have is a positive thing. It's just the fact that we're in this neurotypical world and it wasn't necessarily built for our brains. And it's okay because we're all trying to navigate it. We can all do that together by attending ADHD based events and getting to know each other, and any other neurotypical groups. No, neurotypical groups. Oh my God. Neurodivergent groups.
I'm sorry, I don't think I heard you say that loud enough. I'm sorry. Join what?
Everyone needs to join ADHD Babes because it's incredible and life-changing. If you haven't, you're missing out. That's it.
Bow, 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 bow. La, 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 la. Say it again.
Join ADHD
No, I'm
Babes
joking,
today.
right now. Oh gosh.
But yeah, I think I need to do a little recap, but I feel like the tips was a good recap of what we learned. Yeah, I think I already just did the whole like recap essentially in my little spiel without having to go through that. So
Do you know what? I always love a thing where you kind of like just do it anyway.
yeah, so you can just edit that and it'll be fine. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry,
cool.
sorry. Carry on. It's me messing with the script. I'll stop now. I'll
Okay,
stop.
it's all right. I'll compose myself. I just want to say thank you to Viv and Lala for joining us. Do you guys want to let the audience know how people can get in touch with you? If you want to share socials or anything like that? Viv or
I
Lala?
suppose people can get in touch with me on Instagram at LalaUO. I don't post anything other than, every 6 months, maybe a carousel of my vacation. But if that's of interest to you, and maybe like reshares from TikTok and things that I see that I think are important to share. But yeah, you're welcome to follow me.
And you can find me on socials as well, Instagram and Twitter as VVN Sings. So that's Victor November Sings. Please follow ADHD Babes at ADHD Babes.
I'm really sorry, Viv.
and
Could you
my
start from the beginning? Like we missed the
yeah.
beginning. Sorry. Can you
Yeah,
start
you
yours
cut
again?
out.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's all
It
right.
was so smooth as
Cool.
well.
I know.
Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna slide in there, but
It's
like
not
it
the
froze. It froze.
No, it's all good. You can find me on all socials as well. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, VVN Sings, which is Victor November Sings. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to shoot me a message. Yeah, drop me a DM, and also follow ADHD Babes at ADHD Babes.
Smashing stuff. Thanks, guys, for listening. It's been one heck of a show. I'm glad we're back up and running after a little bit of a hiatus. It's so good. All love. Thank you for listening. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna, in the back.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you, but I
Shauna.
do need the CTA, my love. Sorry. Scroll
Oh.
down.
Oh,
A little bit left.
sorry.
Call to action.
Yes.
Sorry. I got ahead of myself. Yeah. Please let us know if today's episode was informative or helpful and share how you will practice self-acceptance going forward. If you'd like to join ADHD Babes or learn more, you'll find the links to our website and social pages in the show notes, as well as visiting adhdbabes.com. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. If you're a Black woman or non-binary person and need help and support in managing your ADHD or advice on diagnosis, please visit adhdbabes.com. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. Join us in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, all the love from the ADHD Babes team.
Just as I am, can you take me just